Welcome back to another KHANTENT episode about ReZero. The only show...
Season 2, Part 2.
It's the only show where the plot doesn't matter. And the real joke is spending your time watching it. I'm exaggerating, people. Hold on to your asses. We're going to talk about it. But first, you should go to subscribestar.com/KHANTENT and support us for our extremely positive ReZero takes. And also an advertisement. Hey kids, want to impress your friends and induce sexual arousal in your neighbors? KHANTENT t-shirts!
Wow, I've never been more impressed in my life with anything.
KHANTENT now has official t-shirt merchandise, and you can get yourself some by clicking below the video or in the Teespring link in the description. With designs like the classic KHANTENT logo.
Or this.
I've got a shirt on too.
Or this. KHANTENT! And right now, get yourself the I Survived Titan Week t-shirt. Unless you don't want to survive Titan Week, but hey, that's between you and Jesus. They're a great way to support the show and share your KHANTENT pride. So get out there, wear them, and get into KHANTENT. KHANTENT!
すごく愛してる。いや。それでいいんだよ。リア。君を世界で一番愛してる。
Now that you've watched the ad, I fucking hate ReZero.
I don't hate ReZero. It is, you know, okay, first of all, we're coming back to this after, what's it been? Months? Like,
Jesus Christ.
A whole season passed since we saw
Nothing that mattered happened in season 2. That's how I remember the first half of the season.
I'm not going to pretend I remember the plot before this.
They went to the sanctuary and they didn't leave.
Right. There was things they needed to do in the sanctuary to like free everybody they had not yet done. That was the main thing.
We've been through a lot of time loops to explore a lot of people's feelings about why they haven't done anything.
We've at least set up what we're fighting against. We don't want the winter apocalypse, at least. I get that much. So, okay, I understand what there is to be avoided. And we seem to be in the winning loop right now. That seems to be where we're at.
Yes, we are in the winning... God, I hate this fucking show! Jesus Christ! Nothing happened. It's all just dumped on you. It's just characters describing the plot. For fucking 5 episodes. The first 3 episodes of this literally have no content. It is just there's no content.
Look. There's no KHANTENT in my KHANTENT. Okay, I had a revelation. I wrote down an articulation of my feelings about ReZero. I tried to summarize some of the ideas that we have like bounced around, and I came up with something like this. Okay, to like this show, ReZero, you need to like hearing characters state how they feel for long periods.
Yes.
There are some okay jokes and emotions here and there.
No, there's not.
And well, I mean, Rem was all right sometimes. Okay. And pretty excellent production. The production.
Rem? You mean Ram, right? Because Rem was not in these episodes.
I know not in this set, but like in the past, there was some decent emotional
stuff.
Oh,
okay. So we're saying.
I'm talking about like general ReZero ideas.
Because if we're talking about this season 2, part 2, I want to see the list of why you would enjoy that.
Okay, here's the thing though. Like, I've heard there is a group of people who like, ironically like ReZero. And that in particular mystifies me. There's not much here to ironically like, because it's not so bad that it's good by any, like sometimes it's actually kind of good. It does get into that territory. What it is, like I said before, long periods of characters explaining themselves, and if you are going to get anything out of that, you have to, 1, enjoy those kind of scenes, which I think a lot of anime viewers like get frustrated with, but you need to like really be hooked into the characters' emotions and care about the things they're doing, because in this sequence of episodes, you said there's no content. There is content. The content is it's not visible. It's like characters changing their internal feelings and allegiances. For example, the main one being like Garfield, like he joins their squad, so that is like a change, but nothing like, there is a fight that
They're all
leads to
changes
it.
from one vaguely defined emotional state to another vaguely defined emotional state.
That's right, that's right.
And the difference between those two states is, I couldn't do something before and now I can.
Well, okay, this is the thing. See, this is the point of this. Like, that whole idea, characters talking about themselves, it works for, or it makes sense that it would be done in a series where Subaru is our main character. Because what are Subaru's powers? He can redo things. He's got like one magic power with Shamrock that, like, look, we see a shot of him like breaking his magic gate. So I don't know if he's gonna be able to even do fucking magic anymore. I don't know. But the point is, he has one power, and that power is talking to people. And so every single like important thing that happens here is just characters talking and talking and talking, and him like eventually able to change
It's about
minds.
him finding the right words for the situation.
Yes,
basically.
that is the
figuring
sole
out what
thing.
questions he has to ask, whose minds he has to change. But like,
The question is, do you enjoy that kind of content? Do you like watching that happen?
And it's different sometimes when when he's presenting a plan to characters based on like back in the princesses arc and everything, when he got everybody rallied behind him for whatever. In this case, it's like, I don't know, he just kind of like walks up to a character and says like, oh, you've been acting like this because of this, and they're like, you're right.
Yeah.
And then, like, I guess I should change the way I am. And then the next character is like, oh, well, I've been acting like this because of that. And then they're like, oh, you should stop doing that too. Or like, oh, you know what? And then, or like they'll have a fight about it and lose and be like, well, now that I've lost the fight, I do agree with you now that I don't know.
I hear professional anime reviewers out there who really love Re:Zero, and I'm just every day asking myself when I'm watching this shit, why? What am
Re:Zero
I
season
not
2 part
seeing?
2 is like an 8 point something on Mal.
That's really good. That's really
really
good.
high. I don't understand it. And we watched all the episodes that are out. There's only 5.
Yeah,
this is
we're
it.
up to date.
We're caught up.
Look, okay, you know what?
This is one of those difficult episodes to do because like I feel like I'm in a different reality from like fans of this show. Like I don't exist on the same plane. And you were saying something about ironic enjoyment.
Yeah.
I could see, beside that, enjoying the show in spite of itself.
Right.
That is a thing I understand where like if you just really like the characters and concepts, and like I read a bit of a review on Mal that gave the season a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
And it was going through like, oh, you know, what's so great about Re:Zero is like it doesn't treat Subaru as like special, you know, like it beats up on him as a character, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, this was all true from the beginning. What makes this season good? Is it just that you just like the feel, the state, the general idea of Re:Zero so much that like an endless amount of it will always be entertaining?
See, that's the thing. I say I don't understand. I get some of the ideas of why people like it, because I feel that I can enjoy some aspects of Re:Zero in spite of those things that I think other people actively like and enjoy. But look, Subaru's little quips and jokes, I don't really laugh at them. They don't offend me. They don't bother me. They're not even a serious issue most of the time when things keep going and he just slips them in there. We edit right past it fast. That's all fine. It's the long conversations about how characters feel. Every moment I'm watching one of the many one of those that we have in every batch of episodes, I feel like, which to be fair, that's the first 3 episodes here. The second 2 were much better, and I had things that I enjoyed about them, sort of, because they were more like the OVA, and I mean, we'll get to those in a bit. But all this talk about how a character should feel, ironically, for a show that I feel like people like because they feel that it's like realistic, it is not realistic to just have a conversation with a character and just convince them of that, like, they're actually, like, their entire psychological understanding of reality, like, is wrong. Like, we just talk to Garfield, who just realizes, okay, analyze the path of Garfield specifically in these episodes, and all will be made clear. What happens with Garfield? This is like the little arc. We have to stop Garfield so that Subaru can go talk to Emilia for unrelated reasons, and then Subaru finally has the big talk out with Garfield where they beat him in a fight afterward because Subaru's like, I'm going to protect people and I'm going to stay here and protect the sanctuary because I have deep-seated emotional issues we'll get to after we fight. They fight, Subaru wins, and at this point, Garfield chooses to now, like, delve into his own psychology and analyze, why am I doing? And it turns out, oh, there's no reason to be doing what I'm doing. It doesn't make sense. But how did he get there? Subaru just made the most general kind of statements about, you gotta move forward. You can't be stuck in the same place. And while all those things are, like, perfectly reasonable, like, you know, side of a fucking billboard ideas, the way that Garfield is convinced just feels fucking
It's
hollow.
pep talks. The whole show is pep talks. It's characters giving each other's pep talks. And, like, there's a level
Does beating up a man really convince him that your argument is right and that he needs to change how he views the world? I'm not convinced it does.
I realized I have a problem with this show at this point, that the characters are all pathetic. That none of the characters are, like, someone I would want to, like, look up to or be like. You know, like, it's fine to have, like, in Attack on Titan, in that show, like, I feel bad for most of the characters because, you know, they're in this war scenario.
But look at Erwin. Erwin's a hero.
Right.
Erwin's a man
and
trying to win.
a hero or a villain, you know, like, depending on how you look at his actions in the grand scheme of things. But he's a person acting with conviction based on their own ideals. And many of the main characters, you know, like, undergo massive change and become, like, you know, heroic people. In this show, it's like, for characters to make even the smallest iota of emotional growth is just a fucking whole ordeal of, like, an entire arc. This whole arc is just dedicated to, like, Emilia moving on emotionally in, like, you know, like, in, like, a one step forward kind of way.
Right.
And we've spent, like, 15 episodes on, you know, like, it's just so much. Like, it just takes so much to move in this goddamn story. Like, every arc takes forever and reveals very little about the world and characters or changes them very little. And then you've got these things where it just decides to dump information on you without, like, any narrative justification. Like,
we get a whole backstory on, like, the elf clone girl thing. And, you know, we got some of that before. We're getting it now. I'm still wondering what's the fucking point of any of this.
I don't completely know or care. But far more baffling to me is Otto. The decision to just suddenly make Otto a character. So we've been making fun of this for a while. Otto originally showed up as just some kid with a cart who was a coward and kicked Subaru off to save his own life.
Literally threw a man to his death to save his own skin.
It was a fun little weird diversion character. He gets brought back. He has this weirdly serious kind of arc with Subaru in the first half of this. First of all, why was this first episode not a part of the last half of the season? Because, like, it follows up on what was being established with Otto's character.
Scheduling issues.
They literally, like, recap, like, at the start of the episode, the whole speech that he had given. But so then we have this reveal. Otto, like, is stopping some guy from, or I guess he's stopping Garfield from chasing them.
Right.
But, like, by dropping him into a pit full of these bugs called, do you remember what they're called?
No.
I don't remember. But they're these CGI bugs that have never been shown in the series before and have never been associated with this character. But
now they're highly plot relevant.
It turns out that, like, his whole past is, like, he grew up, he couldn't speak when he was a child, and, like, everybody made fun of him. He could hear, like, all these voices from the trees and animals and stuff. So, like, his whole life was, like, living in this weird, like, soundless fucking, or oversound. Everybody sounds muted to him because there's too much noise. So, like, but it's because he has the protection of a guardian spirit or whatever. So, like, we just get this whole fucking Otto backstory about how he became the person he is, basically all just to say he can talk to animals. And the
Which
reason,
we already knew.
Right, and that the reason, I guess they're trying to reestablish that, like, it's a way bigger deal than we first thought, and
it's
the
a
only
divine protection or something. They clarify.
It really felt like this whole backstory was just to explain why Otto wasn't already a major character, which is because he had sealed away this power for a long time,
but we saw
and
him use
hasn't
it.
really been using it, I guess.
Look, I don't care at all, and I'm not going to pretend to care about his backstory, that he can control. Okay, I'm sure that was really tough for you. Fine. We didn't need to spend half an episode.
Just the fact that, like, his whole backstory revolves around these fucking bugs. This idea that, like, oh, he was the bug kid. He talked to the bugs. He accidentally summoned a swarm of them. Like, if these bugs had been a thing throughout the series at all, or if he had ever been shown with them, this would all be fine. But it's just literally making up a character out of nowhere and slotting it into the body of somebody who was already in the show.
I watched an interview, I believe this was yesterday, with David Lynch, where David Lynch was talking about the origin of the character Bob from Twin Peaks. I haven't seen the very end of it, but I've watched much of Twin Peaks. And this character Bob feels in the moment lol so random that it's like the embodiment of evil in Twin Peaks. And in this interview, because it always felt very random, David Lynch talks about how this character was literally like a set designer on the show who happened to be like crouching in an awkward position at one point. And David Lynch liked that so much, he made him like a major main antagonist of his entire Twin Peaks mythos.
That's great.
But the point is, that filled in a space that could have been filled in with anything and was always narratively important. He just chose to put a particular face on it in a funny way that just came to him as he was developing stuff. Otto feels like a similar kind of character, but an unimportant backstory that adds nothing to the story other than, do you like Otto? Here's his epic tragic backstory. And that basically just wastes our time that we could be spending on any other character. It's like you could say, well, this character was just made up out of full cloth and fucking Twin Peaks, and this character over here, they made the same thing. Like, why is one better than the other? Because it's about how you use it and the point of the character, and if you're wasting the audience's time, that's why it matters. I have no fucking time for Otto. Can we please move on from Otto? And you know what, the other fucking thing about Otto's inclusion here is that the way that the situation is set up here is that Emilia goes to bed and Subaru sits there with her for the entire night. The next day, Emilia has disappeared, they're hunting for her, and while this period is happening, they've cooked up this plan, Otto, to hold Garfield back while Subaru goes and talks to Emilia. Okay, this one space of one day where Otto mattered and didn't even really matter was put there to give Otto something to do. Why not just write the scenario so that we don't do the whole skip night thing, this really important emotional conversation Subaru could have with Emilia, just do it the night before when they're just sitting there together, have them go into her fucking backstory and explore all that shit then, and then we don't need any of this Otto backstory.
Yeah.
It was completely pointless. Why would you write it this way?
It felt very weird that Emilia regains her memories and then we wait an episode and a half or two before we see those memories.
I think the number one sin of a show, the number one thing I hate, is when a show wastes my time. When I feel that my time has been wasted. This Otto thing is the worst example of it, possibly in anime history. I am deeply offended that half of an
I feel
hour...
that way about everything we saw in these 5 episodes, even if it was okay. Even in episodes 4 and 5, did anything new happen?
Okay, let's just get to... Look, they fight Garfield. He goes in... Okay, here's another thing. We know that Garfield had, he had gone to the monastery, the sanctuary, whatever it is, because they've got to win the mental game in the monastery to win. Okay, fine. As a child, he had tried to go in and win this. I forget if there were rules that, people could or couldn't... I don't care about those at all, whatever. But Garfield had gone in and tried to win. Okay, when you go into the sanctuary, you have a flashback to a traumatic experience, one of your memories, and you deal with it or something. But when we see Garfield go in after the fight with Subaru, after getting his chutzpah back or whatever, getting his mojo back, he has a vision of his mom, because his tragic backstory is that his mom abandoned him and his sister years ago when they were kids and left and never came back, and he's all traumatized. He's like, my mother didn't love me, blah, blah, blah. But the actual experience of the memory, of this trial, of the thing, is him just learning that his mom actually did love him all along. As soon as he goes in, he finds out she did love him.
No, that's what... Okay,
No?
so the idea is that that's what he's been blocking out.
Okay.
Because his mom did love him, but she died as soon as she left the village in a rock slide.
Right.
So he's haunted by the fact that he can't hate her. Because he would have wanted her to go off and live happily, and he could just resent her for the rest of his life for abandoning him. But because she just died and therefore abandoned them for no reason, then he had to mind trap himself in order to go on hating her.
What about the fact that, he clearly didn't know that she was actually trying to find their father and bring their dad back. Did he know that, or he didn't know that?
I don't remember. I just remember the detail that he...
Okay.
He had his whole hang-up was that his mom died, and he was mad that he couldn't be mad at her.
Oh, okay, but this is the thing. It seems like his mission, his hard mental quest was to go in here and have the information revealed to him that his mom actually did nothing wrong. Yes, she abandoned him like sort of for a little bit, but to make their family whole by finding his dad. So like she really had altruistic good intentions all the time.
Yeah.
So what kind of a trial like explains to you that actually all the bad things you believed are unfounded?
Because that was what he didn't want. He wanted to think that she was a bitch.
Why would you want to believe your mom was a monster when she was a good person all along?
Because it would have been so much easier to hate her than to know that she died pointlessly.
Okay, all right.
Whatever.
I'll let that one go.
I hate it. No, don't let it go. It's the fucking worst. This is the worst writing I've ever fucking seen. This show, again, the way that this plays out is just like characters show up in scenes and talk about their feelings for 15 minutes at a time, and then they state that something is different. But like nothing happens that changes the course of the story in these episodes.
I guess the one, I forget the rules, but like Garfield, he like clears the trial. Don't they need like 3 people to clear it, and now Garfield's like become one of them, I think? That's like the goal, right? And now they need Emilia to do the last one, because Subaru has done one, I guess.
Why is this a 15-episode arc?
I have no idea.
I don't understand.
I have no idea. This seems like it could have been... He really thought this was a great idea. This sanctuary where you revisit memories, and the witches are here, and all that stuff's going on.
We get to a level, when we get into episodes 4 and 5, where episode 4 is almost all flashback.
Yeah.
And then episode 5 opens with a different flashback.
Yeah.
Before we get back to the flashback we're still in.
I don't even know why we cut to that one. It was not
Just
relevant.
Because there was nowhere else to fit it in the episode. We got to throw this other flashback in there somewhere.
Okay. Let's just talk some details and we'll get to this point. So the thing that happens at the beginning of this is that like Puck leaves, right? Her crystal breaks and Puck, her guardian
That is the
spirit
one thing
is
that
gone.
does happen. I will give you that. That
Okay.
is a thing that happened. That was the only scene in the show where I was like, oh, something happened.
Something happened.
Puck has broken the protection. I wasn't entirely clear why it happened now. I guess that he had to unseal her memories, right?
It must have been to give her memories back.
Yeah.
That must be the case.
Well, then that made me think, like, did he not realize that this would help? That, like, this is the thing he had to do in the sanctuary situation until just now? Like, what was it that flipped the switch in Puck's mind that made him say, now's the time to end the contract and release your memories? It probably is explained. I'm not saying this is bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to get a bunch of complaints from people like, no, you're wrong, like, about the particular details. I don't care about the particular details.
Well, sure. Emilia's, it happens to be that in this particular arc, Emilia's memory is exactly the thing that we like need to examine in order to make narrative progress by beating the sanctuary. Even though we have a million other characters, I think, who could clear the trial. Remember how like Subaru was going to do all this stuff for her and it wasn't necessary that Emilia did this? He has simply decided Emilia has to be the one to do it. All right, fine, whatever, I don't care.
I can't keep track of stuff like that.
I'm not going to try.
I can't keep track of the logic behind why the characters are doing the stuff they're doing. I guess that's what bothers me the most, is like, at least with Attack on Titan, that much is always clear.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the plot can be incredibly complex, but you know why the characters are doing what they're doing.
That's the mark of good writing, right? I like a complex plot. I just need to know what my characters, like, motive... You know what? I know what the motivations
Oh my god.
are. I get it.
Do you remember the part where fucking Garfield shows up at the sanctuary at the start of episode 3 and he's covered in blood?
Yes.
And Subaru's like, did you hurt Ram? And he just doesn't answer the question, and it just keeps like psycho rambling.
He says like, they made my body like this.
It's just like one of those things where the proposition. The proposition being raised at the start of the scene is either we are in a doomed time loop because he already killed Ram and Subaru's going to reset.
Yeah.
Or we're not, he's just covered in blood and it doesn't matter. At the immediate reaction I had to that was like, well, it can't be that we're in a doomed timeline because then nothing we're about to see matters at all.
Yeah, right.
So it must just be that
he didn't kill him this time,
and it's just to like.
He has in the past.
Like, is this meant to? Was I meant to be fooled? Was I meant to have an inkling in my mind? Or like, it just felt so flat in the way that scene was presented. It didn't feel like they were trying to even imply that he had actually done it.
Look, they were doing their best, but like they know that we're treating this like the real loop. That we're all like they could kill someone anytime, and we have to do with the loop again. I mean, okay, that's possible, but it doesn't feel that way. The way it's going right now.
It felt like such an obnoxious detail to throw in. Like, ooh, well, don't forget to keep this in the back of your mind. And it's like, I won't.
I didn't even think of that until you mentioned it. I'm like, of course they're alive. He definitely didn't kill them in this loop. Okay, whatever. So Emilia goes in to do the quest. Oh, she kisses Subaru. Oh, wait. Look at this. Oh, it happened, guys.
Wow.
Plot. This is like the equivalent of like girl cutting her hair plot development.
Even that is more than this. Even that at least usually comes after something dramatic has happened. This is just like, I mean.
Oh my God, this conversation. All right,
this was not the time. Like I don't know. This didn't feel like a romantically progressive moment in their relationship. He's just kind of encouraging her.
It's the same shit they always talk about. Yeah. It's literally the same stuff. This was a big woman moment for Emilia of like, you don't actually love me. You're gaslighting me. You say that I'm like the best and the coolest. That doesn't make sense. Which honestly, I have sympathy for that perspective. She wouldn't like understand why he has such faith in her in every way. He's like, no, I'm just being straightforward with you. You're overthinking it. I just really like you and I care about you and I think you're smart. I watch shows to escape this real life dialogue that I have with women.
That
in
was
real
actually
life.
what I like. As I was skipping through that dialogue scene, I was sitting there thinking like, this is the worst conversations. Like the characters in this show, the way they talk, especially fucking Otto.
Yeah.
God, he is insufferable.
The fact that he's inserted himself into the narrative so heavily is bizarre.
But it's him and Subaru in particular, and really everybody does this, where someone will say, you've been waiting long, and they'll say like, well, you could say that I've been waiting long, but it's not as though I was waiting for an especially large amount of time to see you or something. I just simply happened to have, propped myself against this tree for an additional 5 minutes, but, actually I was charging my magic. It's just like everybody just keeps fucking going about everything. Yeah. Everybody says some kind of remark, some kind of like little snooty thing to say, and it's not funny. It's just fucking annoying.
I wanna have a character just pull like a Tywin Lannister when he's talking to his son and be like, "Are you going to say something clever? Go on, say something clever." And then they don't say anything, and then we do something else. That's what I feel about this whole show. Everyone, shut the fuck up! But it's a light novel, and they have to include all the fucking dialogue, so they keep talking. They just keep talking. That should be the name of this episode.
何そんなに慌てちゃって。ごめんなさい。お絵かきのツボいっぱいこぼしちゃって。あっちゅ。
Okay. Look.
The level of it, like, so we just watched Attack on Titan season 4 as well.
Yeah.
And in that, there were moments where characters have like dialogue about their feelings or about like their worldview that I did think was like a little lofty and like doesn't necessarily mean something. Mm-hmm. This show only has that.
To be fair, I mean, the stakes and the people we're with have changed radically, so a little bit of that can be understandable.
It's just like, it's fine when the characters are talking about that in little moments where they're sharing their feelings with one another, and the rest of the plot is like stuff that is happening because of actions that people are taking against one another.
So much happened in those episodes. How much happened in these 5 episodes?
Nothing. Characters just talked about their feelings. Like, again, like, yes, you could say that, like, okay, well, some people changed sides or converted what they were doing, but it was literally just, to me, it feels like if you cut all the dialogue and just had the Subaru say to them, like, hey, you're acting like a crazy bitch, and they go, oh shit, you right, it would be no different. It's the same thing happened. It's just that it was 15 minutes of them explaining why it's happening, and the explanations are dumb. Like the emotional explanations, it's all couched in just like the way that people happen to perceive the situation they're in. And like when your plot is based around the way the characters perceive their situation, everything's a convenience, because all it takes to change the plot is change characters' minds, which anything could make them, like, the dialogue that Subaru gives to people is not dialogue that in the real world would change people's minds. He's not charismatic. He's not convincing. Like,
I guess when somebody beats you up, like he does with Garfield, like, and makes his point, and he's like, he doesn't like kill him, he like lets him believe, he's like, I'm just trying to, teach you this way. like, could that make a difference? I don't know. Maybe a little bit.
The worst is when we start getting into the fucking sins and all of what they represent. When like they start having these conversations about like what it like. Oh, you are truly slothful and you are greed. Well, this is the real manifestation of greed. Oh, I'm a more pure manifestation of greed than you are. And it's just like, oh man.
Looking back on those old conversations we had about sins, I feel like those have aged like. What's the thing that ages bad? Like milk. They've aged like milk. At the time, I could get something out of them. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, it's just like every single one of the sin characters, there's like some kind of very particular interpretation of what it means. What does sloth mean in this context?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, it's like this very abstract idea of what sloth means. But then like, again, if we're going to start having like plot-relevant conversations based on how people interpret the word sloth, that's a level of semantics I just turn my brain off at.
And you know, it stands to be said again. It should be said. Everything we're describing can be done well. There's a time and a place for every scene, for every kind of character interpretation. But it's like this show. Like you were saying before, there's no like heroes to be admired. There's like a couple strong fighters, kind of decent people here and there. They're not main characters because everyone is like self-analyzing and so doubtful of each other. Like every character is that way. You've got to have like the hero characters and like the aspirational characters, and then like the old hero dies and the hero can like take his place, but there's none of those leading characters.
It's too neurotic. The whole show is too neurotic, and it comes from like the author. I don't know.
That is the
being
point of
that
the
way
story,
or something.
I guess.
Like it's just the way that the whole story feels is like everybody is trapped inside their own head and obsessed with themselves and like overthinking everything all the time.
Yeah.
And I get it because I'm that type of person, but I also like, I guess I understand as I've grown older that is an uncommon way to be, and that it is weird when you read a story where everybody is like constantly quipping and like overanalyzing everything, and it just gets exhausting.
It's all about the way you do it, and it's just too
like,
much.
It also leads to this where, because it's trying to be kind of, not fourth wall breaky, but aware of its own meta. Yeah. Because of that, there's this temptation to escalate all the powers and concepts to like these crazy meta levels. But we get to a point where during the backstory, so basically we learn the history of Emilia, see her with her mom in this little village that they lived in, and the day they got attacked by the fucking sins.
Yeah, right.
And like, the sins, their powers are just so like reality bending that it gets to a point where there's just nothing we can believe is even real in the show. Where like the one guy gets, so you got Witch of Vanity. She's mad at Witch of, I think, Greed for like going off and killing people, and she's like, you should hold your horses. And so he like evaporates her into a cloud of dust, like just blows her up. You're like, oh shit.
Right.
And like 15 seconds later, she just like appears above him and then like pushes him into the earth and disappears him to somewhere else on the planet. And then she's like, oh, I can undo like, some of what's been done and stuff. It's like, well, if characters are just walking around undoing
full reality
shit,
Marvel
it's like
warping shit. Yeah.
Nothing in the story is real anymore. Like, we've gotten to a point where there's so many characters who can change the nature of what's going on. I'm never going to be able to keep track of what's like the true timeline in this show. Like, that's going to be impossible. But yeah, like, it just felt so tensionless to me to watch all these like omnipowerful god characters running around just like doing shit to each other.
We don't know any of them. We don't have any attachment to, well, the new witch was the Witch of Vanity, but she's also called the Witch of Vainglory. By the way, that's like a new witch type. So there's the 7 deadly sins. There's actually 2 additional sins that are less popular. One's vainglory, which is boasting beyond what's fair. The other one is acedia, which is the inaction of doing things that you know are right. That's like my favorite sin, and I want to see that sin around somewhere. Acedia is based. Bring that shit back. Make it the 8th deadly sin.
Amazing.
It's sick. Anyway, I don't care about the character
at
all.
What happened to the 8th and 9th? How'd they get lost in mythology over the years?
I don't know the full backstory, but if you go to the Wikipedia page, as I have many times for the 7 deadly sins, those are in the like they're like the 2 forgotten children.
Sounds so much more interesting than ReZero. Yeah, I mean the backstory. So okay, This whole 2-episode backstory seemed to exist to me for the sake of letting you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Betelgeuse was definitely gonna fuck Emilia's mom.
Yeah. I think it might have even been implied they already were fucking, maybe? Like, who's her dad? We don't see her dad.
They want to fuck badly.
Yeah. But we see Beetlejuice. He's back and normal.
He's introduced, and at first, at first it just kind of pops in episode 3. We start the backstory. She's just running around, frolicking like a My Little Pony character in her little.
She's a little girl, right?
Garden.
In this village, obviously, is very important. They call her like the princess or something, so she matters. Yeah.
And her mom is pretending not to be her mom, and just like a person who's raising her, I guess.
Her aunt or whatever.
But it's actually her mom. It's a very like Disney-esque, just kind of princess fairy tale backstory, which is kind of disappointing considering that like it's been this big mystery. What is like Emilia doesn't know about her past. What's the truth about her? It's not interesting.
Incidentally, we've seen an OVA about her past before, but it was like the Attack on Titan Levi episode.
Right.
A very specific window of time after she woke up.
We learn in her backstory that Betelgeuse was around, and the very first thing that's hinted at is like, oh, her mom kind of seems to have a thing for Betelgeuse, even though she's an older lady, and she's like gets mad at somebody for like. She's like, oh, who said anything about me being old? I could definitely fuck that young Betelgeuse guy. And then, like...
But Beetlejuice is even older, apparently, or something? Because he's a spirit, they say at one point. They call him a spirit. They imply he's, like, immortal, and he's lived a very long time.
I was just immediately like, why? Like, my first reaction was just a flat, like, I really didn't need to know that Emilia's mom was going to fuck Betelgeuse.
Okay, let's analyze that. We've seen Betelgeuse before. He was like a fucked up weird monster man.
Yeah.
Obviously doesn't look like the handsome shonen-y boy he is now.
Yeah.
Okay, secondary thing. Beetlejuice right now is wearing the same clothes he wore as like an Archon of Sin, or one of the sloth guy or whatever, and all his boys. He's wearing those same clothes now. Now, see, my reading originally was that he wore those clothes because at some point in the past he had become the Archbishop of Sloth or whatever, and him and his boys started wearing these clothes.
Right.
But I noticed they're wearing the same clothes here before he became, or maybe, no, he had some relationship with like the Sin cult or something, because he had the box with the witch power in it or something that he uses. I don't understand the relationships here whatsoever. Who's a good witch? Who's a bad witch? What does Emilia have to do with any of it? Obviously she's related to like the ancient witch of envy in some way, probably. I don't get it. I'm confused. Help.
I think she is the Witch of Greed. I think there's
of envy, you mean?
No, greed.
Really? Okay.
No, I don't know. She's somebody.
All right.
So I used to keep trying to like come up with predictions and stuff for this show, and I'm way past caring because like nothing fucking happens. Like I can't believe we're just this far into this fucking sanctuary arc, and it's still the way it is.
You know,
and like
I was just thinking to myself on the way over here. I was thinking, you know, people who say, you know, you guys aren't following the plot in a detailed way. Okay, fair. But if our point isn't that we're making specific points about this is bad, this is good, if our point is I'm bored, that's a totally separate thing, that's totally valid, and that's exactly how I feel watching the show.
I'm bored and confused as to why the details that are fixated on are. Like, considering all that was set up in season 1, all of that, like, all the interesting characters that were around that we have not learned anything new about, or potentially interesting characters, I guess I should call them, like, plot points that have just kind of been lingering in the background and dropped. We just stopped at this sanctuary literally at the start of season 2, and we've been there for what feels like an entire other show worth of time, and, like, it's all just delving into characters' memories and backstories in the least interesting way you possibly could. Like, when, again, to compare to Attack on Titan, when that show does this, where it just suddenly jumps into character backstories, it's at moments in the plot where, like, it will radically shift our understanding of what came before to see this now. Learning Emilia's backstory changes fucking nothing.
It just, like,
it just tells us that Beetlejuice was gonna fuck her mom. That's it.
Yeah.
That is the only difference between he was a friend of hers when she was young who wanted to fuck her mom. Then he tried to protect them from the evil Sin people, but he got turned into one of them, and it was a big bad, and that's why she got separated from her family. But like, this doesn't change our understanding of Emilia at all.
You know what it is? Every mystery about Emilia's past, we haven't been given specific answers, but we've been shown the general idea. We know she was frozen in ice for a long time. Obviously, something important happened with there. We know she's related to the witches, probably the Witch of Envy. She looks exactly like her. I'm sure this isn't a coincidence. There's a connection here of some kind. And whatever the specific ways that these things happen, they don't matter. They literally don't matter. Because they're just going to be filling in details that could be anything. She spent 100 years in ice. She spent 200 years in ice. It doesn't matter. Her village was destroyed by snow? No, it was destroyed by the Black Serpent and a couple guys. Doesn't matter. Who cares? None of these details matter. It's in the past. It already happened, and it doesn't change anything.
It felt shocking to be watching the very beginning of a generic JRPG 30 episodes into a show. 40 episodes into a show, I should say.
Something like that.
Like, that's all this was. It was just any beginning to any JRPG. Oh my god. I just remembered there was this moment where the fucking pink-haired elf and Betty are walking through the woods together. And all I could think about was just how ridiculous they looked. Because it's like Betty is in, full goth lolly fashion, colored, they're just being drawn with like one-tone shading. So they're just like bright fucking pink, You got the elf next to her who looks like she's going to a rave in her fucking pulled-up collar and pink hair. And they're just walking through a generic fantasy forest like you would see in just some RPG. And I was just like, this is just... It's offensive to all my senses right now. And I understand that this is just like the way anime be. You got these goofy characters, but like, I don't know, couldn't they wear multiple outfits or something, like when they're out in the forest or something? Or just some kind of dramatic shading to make it feel less like I'm looking at... They're just so pink, just blasting off the background, and that's all I could think about because I was really disengaged with the story at that point.
I mentioned this before. The one thing I kind of liked was just like when we get to episode 4 and 5, it reminded me of the Emilia OVA, which was really nicely done. I actively enjoyed. It was the best part of ReZero, how like relaxed and slow and quiet and like the high production of like the sound of Emilia walking, the calm atmosphere. I actively enjoyed watching that. It was good. And I felt some bits of that in Emilia's little flashback in her village. Okay, but once you get past all that, the details, as I said, they don't matter. Okay, what are we building to? Emilia's a princess. She obviously isn't supposed to go out. She's not supposed to like be exposed to the world because obviously something big is inside of her. Something's gonna happen, and there's this magic gate she's supposed to stay away from. It's the seal. What's it sealing? I'm sure we're gonna learn, and it's going to be a big deal. It's probably what froze everybody. And we leave it with her being lured out while her village is being destroyed, and she meets Pandora, the witch of Vainglory or whatever. And that's where we leave it. Okay, whatever happens here doesn't matter because we know what happens in the future. And I know that the point of exploring this for us back in the future is the character of Emilia needs to remember these things to unlock her past and narratively move us beyond it so we can finally leave the fucking sanctuary. But this whole arc has been a complete bore. It has been so uninteresting. There were elements that were kind of decent, like the Witch of Greed was funny at times, cute designs, the other witches are fine. But I just feel like my time is being wasted, and I could be doing anything else instead of this. We could have done this in like 5 episodes and got through all this shit. This isn't as interesting as, for me, I don't find any of this to be as interesting as certainly the rest of the audience that's giving it this high rating. So I am not getting the same good things that other people are.
I think that a lot of people are they just like ReZero. They just like the characters, they like the world, and what actually happens is completely incidental to just like the tone, seeing the characters, hearing them say the kinds of things that they say, or like even just maybe people are watching it to get a motivational pep talk, like who themselves feel like they're in a state like these characters or something. But like for me, I'm watching this and it's not that I don't like the characters of the world or anything. I gave lots of, compliments to the first season, and there were lots of things I liked about it and was interested in seeing expanded on. They just haven't been brought up. Nothing that was interesting has come up this season so far. Everything, like, I never cared about Garfield, and I never will. He's obnoxious. He doesn't seem like he's going to be relevant for longer than this arc, and his emotional backstory is fucking nonsensical and dumb.
Very contrived.
Otto, I couldn't possibly care. He's annoying. He's like was originally not a character and now he just suddenly is. It's totally forced.
Yeah.
Nothing he's done is particularly cool. He's just like a guy who was there because they needed a character. Why not just bring another character back, for fuck's sake?
Yeah.
Stop trying to turn more people into characters. Just fucking bring back the ones that already aren't doing anything.
Bring back Petra. I don't know. Whatever. Look, and to everybody else who likes the show way more than me or us or whatever, that's fine. You know, you can enjoy. I'm not saying anything that you've enjoyed is wrong. I think it's just that when I watch, I take notes. I'm like paying attention. I'm trying to keep track of all the information. I think I'm just doing it wrong. You're not supposed to watch ReZero this way. And this isn't even really an insult of ReZero.
I don't even think you're wrong. I think that the light novels probably are meant to be read that way. And that to some degree, the anime's like reshuffling and compartmentalizing of information makes it feel even. Because like, if it were the point that there are so many insanely amount of details, that was a weird sentence, then that would be a reason to read the book, is to be like, just like, oh, I want to keep track of as much fucking bullshit as I can. And so if that's reduced at all in the anime, then it might feel like, oh, well, you know, there's gaps in the story now. And there's like, now it feels like I'm paying attention to too much stuff for a popcorn entertainment, but too little stuff for a uber dense, like, world building thing. Maybe that's the case. That's me really trying to be generous.
See, that's the thing. I am not at a comfortable place in regards to this show. I'm not a genius. I'm aware this is a light novel for children, or like for teenagers, so in no way am I implying I'm too smart for ReZero. All I can say, I beseech you, audience, I'm fucking bored, and that I'm not gonna watch it again because it was boring the first time, and I've watched so many episodes, I'm not enjoying the experience. So look, I don't know, I feel like I need to appeal to the people who are gonna be like, no, it's actually good. There will never be a meeting of the minds on this. ReZero is kind of okay sometimes. It's mostly boring most of the time. It doesn't give me what I personally want. And if it does for you, then that's great. Congratulations.
Do you want to fail ReZero all the way 5 episodes into season 2, or are you gonna try to keep trucking through it to see if something happens?
You know, I don't mind seeing where things go from here. I'm kind of interested, just on the sake of as a study, as an anthropologist of studying this human creation, where is it going to go? So I don't feel the need to like cash out and never look back at it.
I mean, it's just like, I feel like having done season 1, my initial feeling on the show had been like, fuck it, I don't care, boring. I really gave a shot to season 1, and in doing so felt like more endeared to it. And maybe I haven't given as much of a shot to season 2 part 1 and 2 yet. I haven't rewatched them. I haven't tried to I haven't made the concerted effort to care about what's happening. And it is a little bit easier when you know where the story is going. To go back and you kind of know what details matter, and you can go, oh, okay, now I get why that was happening at that part. Maybe some of that would happen, but I could not be fucking asked.
I had to force myself to start these episodes.
It was really hard.
I did not want to.
And I haven't been watching a lot of shit lately. You know, even it feels weird to me to be like, yeah, Attack on Titan is so good that it makes ReZero hard to watch.
That's where we're at.
When both shows started, I would have probably thought they were about the same.
Yeah.
But no, we're in
Things
a
have
totally
changed.
different world at this point.
This has not changed. This has stayed the same.
Attack on Titan kept getting better because it kept building on itself, and everything just makes it more intricate, more complete. This just feels like it's going nowhere. I am lost in the morass of details of a world that is too big and too complicated for me to ever care about.
And it's not that it's the most complicated anything. Its level of complexity far outstrips the level of engagement I feel obliged to give it. So it's that disparity that is the issue. It could be as complicated as it wants if it's really good and uses it well.
Legend of the Galactic Heroes, very complicated, very engaging. This, not so much.
That's going to do it, folks. I hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about your favorite anime, ReZero Season 2 Part 2 on KHANTEHNT. Sorry, we apologize. Subscribestar.com/KHANTEHNT, $10 for bonus episodes, Titan Week, Attack on Titan bonus episode, high school, middle school. It was a good time. And also, buy t-shirts of Titan Week and other KHANTEHNT type things. Twitter, join the Discord down below, and of course, send us KHANTEHNT clips, and we'll see you next KHANTEHNT.